right, let's get started. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Guillaume Boisvert. I'm the Director of Product Innovation at Sherweb, and we're here today for another product launch webinar, this time with ConnectSecure, where we're going to be talking about the wonderful subject of vulnerability management. With me today is Ryan Seymour, the Vice President Consulting and Education for ConnectSecure. Welcome, Ryan.
Glad to be here.
Just a few housekeeping items while we're here. Today, similar format to the other webinars we've done recently that you may have joined us for. We'll talk about vulnerability management as a topic for MSP. What are we talking about when we say vulnerability management? Why is it important? Like what should you be looking for? And then the main topic of conversation today, obviously, is our friends at ConnectSecure, who will be presenting their software. We'll have a demo as well of the environment, nothing like seeing the actual product. And then we'll close with how to get started with ConnectSecure at Sherweb. And then we'll keep a little bit of time for questions. So let's get rolling. So vulnerability management is one of those things that it was a bit of a gap in our product portfolio. Sorry, English is hard. But it's something that we've been discussing more and more with our partners, that they have an interest for it, that there is a demand from the market about it. So Ryan, let me bring you into the conversation. I think vulnerability management has existed just about forever, but for some reason it hasn't necessarily been a intricate part of the MSP portfolio. How do you see sort of the relation between vulnerability management and the MSPs today?
Yeah, I think it's been one of the long lost services that a lot of managed IT providers have kind of overlooked in a lot of cases. We see MSPs out here really, really good at taking over managed IT services, right? That include your traditional antivirus, a firewall, some perimeter security. But vulnerability management often is kind of not included in that suite. So it's good to be bringing it up. It's a really low cost, high impact point into the cybersecurity business, in my opinion. It's a way to get into the cybersecurity business. And the other part of that is most of the MSPs out there that are doing managed IT services for their customers at some extent, no matter what that is, you're taking risk and liability of their vulnerabilities in some way, shape, or form. And we've seen that demonstrated time and time again through supply chain attacks. And the MSPs that service your customers, you are part of the supply chain. So getting some revenue for the risk and liability that you're already assuming is a great idea for all MSPs out there. So we love ConnectSecure to help solve those problems, get our MSP partners into that cybersecurity space, into the risk conversation, and start to transform from a traditional managed IT provider to more of an MSSP or a security provider. Because I think the MSPs that do IT are in the best position to do just that.
Yeah, it's a conversation we have with partner also. It's one of the points that we bring up is if you don't talk about it, then it's exactly what you said. You're taking on risk, like unspoken risk, because I think it's fair enough to say in the MSPs on the webinar today, if anybody wants to argue, please put in your comment, but the client assumes you're responsible for everything. Just as it's like a baseline rule. If it's not clearly stated and it's related somehow to internet, IT, anything like that, then they feel like their MSP should be responsible for everything. So turning that assumption into a business opportunity seems to make a lot of sense. I think the regulatory sort of environment and compliance environments is doing you a bit of a favor, right? Today, would you say the same? As that seems to be what's driving that conversation more and more. The example we have on screen, cyber insurance, for example, that really seems to help everybody accept the fact that we have to do more.
Yeah, for sure. And that's always an easy one, right? Regulators, compliance requirements, cybersecurity insurance requirements. Those are easy drivers, because now we're not asking, but someone's telling the MSP, hey, you must do this thing in order to do business with us. Those are easy wins, right? Okay, fine, I'll do it. The other one that's probably an easy driver is everybody cares when there's been an attack, after there's been an issue, after an incident has occurred. Now all of a sudden there's a blank check for cybersecurity, and by then that check's getting very big, because you got to clean up a mess usually. But those are two easy drivers for it. But again, I feel like, just like we transitioned our entire industry from break fix to managed services by being proactive, MSPs need to get proactive about risk assessments, vulnerability scans, get out in front of them early, right? Because when you're proactive, we all know the price is much cheaper. It's much easier for us all to kind of swallow it. So, but to your point, I think regulation and compliance is really coming down in our industry more and more as we see more and more of these attacks happening. I mean, just most recently, we just saw one of the largest channel distributors in our space, Ingram Micro. They're facing some pretty bad consequences, and that happened last Thursday. We're still not out of the woods. It's next Thursday. If you follow any of the market cap, Ingram Micro Holdings lost around $300 million since last Thursday, and that's a lot. That's a lot of vulnerability scanning, right? So
Oh yeah.
there's the writings on the wall to get in there, and there's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah, and without being rude to Ingram, they weren't exactly felt by like the most sophisticated of attacks either, from what we know so far.
Right.
So this is really an unfortunate endorsement of the fact that we need to do more up front. Like you don't want to react like it says here. You don't want to react. Like you want to act, be proactive. I think the comparisons to switching to being an MSP is very valid. Like it's very apt. I think everybody has gone that one. I think we just need to keep going when it comes to security.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, you're the expert. That's why you're here. I'm an MSP. You've got me convinced. Like I have to do more around vulnerability management, attack surface management, things like that. What should I look for? Like other than the obvious, like you should buy ConnectSecure answer. Like what are the sort of more the table stakes that I should be looking at when I'm making those decisions?
Yeah, so I think you nailed probably the first most important one is, all the MSPs here should be answering the question for your customer, what are my compliance requirements? Right? I think that's one of the first things you ask is to your customer, whether you literally ask them or you figuratively ask them at your MSP, what are my customers' compliance requirements? I think that starts to become a guiding light on what you should be or shouldn't be doing. Um, And then I think the MSPs here have to pick a framework and align themselves to it, right? There's that, to me, that's the first step in the journey is how do we even start doing this? And y'all should be doing it at your own MSPs, right? Every MSP that's here, you should be looking at your own internal infrastructure and networks and starting there and saying, how does vulnerability management look on our network? How do we look? And you learn those lessons. You learn how to price it, package it, deploy it, sell it, market it. I think all those things start to culminate when you do it on yourselves first. And then I think you start to look at the customers in terms of every one of your customers needs to have a risk assessment completed. And most of the MSPs, you guys already have RMM agents deployed. You already have relationships built with these clients where you can easily get in and perform a risk assessment for them. Um, and we've never seen a risk assessment come back clean, right? Not the first one, not the first one. Maybe the third, fourth, fifth, sixth one's clean and you get them to that state. But that initial risk assessment, it's unauthenticated scanning. You don't have to have a bunch of credentials. We're going to go and assess our customer's network from the public facing internet side, just like our hacker friends do, and give them an opportunity to say, look, this is what we found. Let us help you close up these vulnerabilities, right? This is the low hanging fruit. And then from there, I think you start to lean towards the internal side and you get a full service going. But the entry point in for the MSPs here is usually very simple. And that comes with doing a risk assessment, doing a vulnerability scan, an external vulnerability scan to your customers. And again, we can do that right now without asking, just like our hacker friends do. They don't ask for permissions or maintenance windows or credentials, right? They just start spraying stuff. So I think that's a great way for MSPs to just do it now instead of waiting for an incident or waiting for a regulation to come down. Because I want to say the other thing we see often with some of our partners that come in and get ConnectSecure or they want to talk to us is it's the worst scenario. Their customer has came to them and said, "Hey, we have to be HIPAA compliant. What can you do to help us?" And you need to know how to answer that question. You need to be prepared to answer that question and say, "Yes, Mr. Customer, we've ran HIPAA assessments internally. We have a compliance platform to scan and maintain your HIPAA compliance, et cetera, et cetera." But if you're not prepared for those questions, you most likely lose that business. And your customer is now looking elsewhere for that. And you just don't want some other person doing cyber compliance when you're doing managed IT. It never works out well. Usually what I see is the cyber guys take the managed IT service over. That's what happens.
Yeah,
Compliance comes at a higher level, right?
business goes to the most trusted sort of partner, and if the security guy can do MSP work, yeah, they'll rather have just one provider. Generally, is what we've seen.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm moving right along because I know everybody likes the demos and the concrete stuff. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Ryan, to just walk us through some of the capabilities of ConnectSecure and what makes it sort of such an ideal choice for MSP partners.
Great. Yeah, I will get my screen share going here and I will pull our product up.
Well, so do you want to go through the slides?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Jumping ahead. Getting excited, right? We all like to see the product stuff.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So as far as just a little background about the company, ConnectSecure itself, we are headquartered over down in sunny Tampa, Florida. We've got a team about 25 on the ground there in Tampa. We have a distributed work support team that spans across the U.S. We've got a couple up in Canada and some folks over on the West Coast side in Vancouver. And then we've got some folks, myself and a couple other members here in Southeast Michigan. So distributed workforce across the US. And then we have our development centers in Bangalore, where our development and engineering team primarily work out of. We service just north of 3,000 partners. So about 3,000 MSPs globally run our product. And that accounts for about 3 million endpoints. So we're protecting and scanning about 3 million endpoints every month. Product been released initially about 5 years ago as named Cyber CNS. So if you've been with us for a while, you may know the word Cyber CNS. That was the original rollout of our product, and it has since birthed into what is now ConnectSecure. So same product, and then the core of our product is focused in on vulnerability management, as we've been talking about, and also compliance management. Those are really the core features of our product. We position ourselves very closely around the NIST cybersecurity framework. We've got a nice graphic there showing the NIST CSF 2.0. We focus in heavily, if y'all are familiar with the cyber defense matrix, we have a nice bingo card there from, I love the cyber defense matrix ideology, so we wanted to highlight that. We operate in that identify lane primarily, and we can identify all the asset classes out there. So your devices, right? Your servers, your workstations, your switches, your IoT, your networks, right? The VPNs, the communications between the WANs, the actual networks that communication rides on, your applications, of course. So we scan third-party applications, we scan the operating systems. We do data in terms of PII or CUI data, so personable identifiable information, things like credit cards, driver's licenses, social security numbers, things that can identify somebody. You might also consider users in terms of Active Directory, Entra, or just local users, CRMs, places where you store user accounts. So ConnectSecure goes in and helps you guys identify all those nooks and crannies of where that data resides. And then, of course, we hit it with ball scans to try to find any of those attack surfaces for you. So we really position in around on that identify section. You'll notice there's a couple turtles listed there on the protect columns for devices and apps. We do offer patch management and some remediation in our tool. So we cover a couple of the protects, not fully there, but we do work very well alongside RMM tools that are our existing patching system. So we'll call out there. And then in terms of the ConnectSecure product, I'm going to demo a lot of these features kind of over quickly with you guys today, just to give you a bird's eye view of it. I'm not going to word vomit all the features on the screen. All the folks here will get a copy of this deck. So this will kind of call out all of the high level features that our product works in. But rather than sit here and read, I want to show you guys what those features actually look like, so we can demystify vulnerability management in some ways, because this stuff is not complicated, and every MSP should be doing it. And it's really easy to do. And I'm going to show you how we do it, how we make it easy. And then near the end, we're going to talk about some of the resources that we have at ConnectSecure and some of the resources at Sherweb to help the partners operationalize this tool, right? So we give you this cool tool. It has all these functions in it. You need a guide, right? You need a checklist. You need a, hey, what's the best way to implement this thing? We might call it a STIG. We've got those guides built for you guys. So we'll talk about some of those resources as well, so that you guys can arm this tool and not just have a fancy tool functions inside of it. And then I really want to highlight that the tool, we have a motto, you'll see it on our website, built by MSPs for MSPs. That's important to us because the identity of ConnectSecure, myself, all of my colleagues, my peers, our partners, we all speak and live MSP. Everybody in our space has been in or at an MSP for at least a decade or longer. Many of us have built MSPs and sold and exited them that are on our team. So we all have some really great operational maturity at every walk of an MSP, from just getting started, 2 to 5 users, all the way up to my largest, that has 500 users and over $1 billion in revenue. We deal with some of the largest MSPs on the planet. So we've got some experience through all of those channels. And the overarching goal for us always is to rise the tide of all of the MSPs out there, right? We want to take what we call best in class from the highest level and share that down with everybody. Because it's not brain surgery. Vulnerability management does not need a PhD. So it's really surprising to me still today how many MSPs just aren't doing it well. So we want to try to help educate by bringing not only the product, but also some thought leadership and some resources to you guys, so you can build out vulnerability management programs, policies, and standard operating procedures that will ultimately support everything we're going to show you in this tool today, right? That's the how you do it.
Yeah, and when we introduce products, or when we look at products, even at Sherweb, some of the key MSP friendly characteristics that are here on this slide, like it really aligns to what we want to bring. And you touched on it, is bringing like world-class functionality to everybody and making it accessible, which is 100% what Sherweb is all about as well.
Yeah, and the other big thing I want to call out that was on that slide front and center, and I wasn't reading the slide, so I apologize, but that first one on there is important to me: community development model. Our company is very much built around our partners. That include all of the MSPs, MSSPs, VARs, ISP, whatever you are, whatever that identity is. You guys are the breadth of our product development and roadmaps here at ConnectSecure. So everybody that has this product has a say at the product management table at ConnectSecure. And that's something unique we do for our partners. I love that we do that. I hope we never get away from it. We hold a weekly call where all of our partners are welcome to join us and sit in on product management calls and give us their voice. We look to you guys, even our distribution partners like Sherweb. You guys are very mission critical to what do you guys need out in this space to be successful as an MSP? What tools, what resources, what education do you need? And we want to help curate that for you guys. So I just wanted to make sure I called that out, because that's a big part of our identity. Is we're very partner focused and in tune to what's going on in the streets of the MSPs out here. So
it's a very fair point.
So now the good stuff, right? The demo. We've talked about vulnerability management. So I want to kind of give you guys a sneak peek of the actual production product. We're going to dive into it. I'm going to show you We're not going to go through a full blown demo because we're limited on time, but I do want to highlight some of the things we've talked about that are changing the way our MSP partners are doing business out there. So we want to share that with you guys. All right, so we're going to do a screen share here. I am going to share out. Bear with me.
Yep, we can see it now.
All right. So let me move this over just a touch on my way. All right, so we are logged into the ConnectSecure portal, and a couple things I want to kind of just highlight on the journey. Again, I'm thinking in the lens of an MSP. First and foremost, we talk about multi-tenant support. You guys manage multiple customers. You need to be able to manage the same way in the tools. So in our tool, we have an easy way to switch between any of the tenants that you have in here. So imagine all your customers sitting in this list. And then you also have a global view of those customers. So within the ConnectSecure portal, you always have the ability to view, manage, and edit things either globally all together or individual sites. So you can manage customers, at scale, and then make those exceptions and one-offs based on customer requirements. So we make it easy for you guys to always do that. I want to talk about the login experience in terms of getting users logged into this tool. The tool does support single sign-on methods. So if you're using SAML, if you're using Entra, if you're using Active Directory, if you're using Duo or one of these MFA tools out there, we pretty much work with all of them unless it's some, non-compliant homegrown thing. Industry standard stuff to make logins easy for you guys. Again, getting your users logged into the portal. No MSP wants to say, hey, I have another username, another password, and another MFA token in that big long list. So we encourage and promote SSO or identity provider logins. Again, to make it easy for you guys to manage on and offboard users in this portal. I want to also highlight the user section of our portal in terms of RBAC or role-based access controls. So in terms of security, and actually, I'm just going to go pop over into the tool and show you guys here. When we set users up in our portal, we do have the ability to assign them a specific role to limit what they can see in the vulnerability management tool. So you'll have your assets, vulnerabilities, compliance, Active Directory, and PII. Those are the main categories of data. So you do have the ability to separate what they can see. You also have the ability to separate who they can access. So if you have technicians that only manage a certain set of your customers, we have the ability to deploy security around that. This also works really well for MSPs that have subcontractors or downstream customers where they may access your portal directly. We're seeing more and more co-managed IT happening out there. So when you have those customers, you can safely grant them access to their tenant and just their tenant. So it gives the MSPs the ability to allow their end users also to log into this in a view-only mode or as an administrator to fully manage the vulnerability management software. So there's some good opportunities there for partners that are doing co-managed IT or have subcontractors on staff that they need to limit scopes to. We've built that in for you guys to make it easy, of course. Okay. So users, SSO, logins, nice and simple. Let's get into one of the main other pieces of the tool, which is the agents, right? The actual scanning here. So the tool is agent-based, okay? And our agent installers come in 4 different OS flavors. We support Windows, we support Mac, we support Linux, and we support ARM 64 and 32-bit. Those would be for your Raspberry Pis. So the agent can be installed on just about any device, and we provide you with command line option, so PowerShell or terminal scripts. We also provide traditional executables and MSI deployments. If you're using an RMM, which most of our partners have some RMM tool out there, we also provide the RMM scripts. So you can mass deploy these agents. Agents deploy in generally 30 seconds or less. They come online almost right away. And you can deploy hundreds or thousands of them with no issue. They're easily and made to deploy and scale. So we've made it easy to get these out. And once they are out and installed, You'll have a dashboard view like this. You'll see all the agents you have out there installed. They will start checking in, and we'll be recording basically that heartbeat, checking in on that agent every 5 or 6 minutes or so, making sure it's online, checking for updates, that kind of stuff. And once you have the agent installed in our portal, we do offer a whole list of commands that you can issue right from that agent. For example, okay, I want to remove the agent now. Well, you can just uninstall them right from our portal in mass. You can also delete agents in mass. We can restart them. We can pull logs from them. So we've built in a lot of the troubleshooting components that you normally have to go to another tool to do. We've tried to build that in right to the portal again to make it easy for the techs that manage this to get the agents out or get them rolled back and pulled in when you need to. Okay. Agent deployment, very simple. Agent architecture. Agent gets down onto a machine and it will scan that local machine. There is a second option, what we call our probe agent. The probe agent has the ability to also go and scan a network. So, for example, I can go into a customer. I can go into we call these discovery settings, and I'm just going to call this our WAN or corporate network. And we can tell ConnectSecure agent, hey, I want you to go scan the network, and I want you to scan this range of addresses. And again, you can put in a CIDR notation. If you are a network SME and you know your CIDR notations, you can drop those in. If you prefer to do it a range and you just want to type that range in there, you can also just use an IP range and limit the scope if you don't want to do the full subnet. Or you can point at a single static IP if you just want to scan a single static address. Or you can do multiple combinations of this. There's no limit here. You can have multiple segments in here. If you have multiple VLANs, if you have multiple WANs, if you have a VPN, you want to put all those things in and allow our scans to penetrate all those areas. You will also have an option to add credentials to ConnectSecure. And this is, again, something I'd love to highlight with our MSP partners out here. When you do vulnerability scanning, there's two types of scanning in my world. There's authenticated scanning, which means I have a credential and I can get down and get deep and get real interior based. Or there's unauthenticated scanning, where I'm going to just scan the device and see what I can recover from it from a reconnaissance fingerprinting standpoint. What is that device doing? Can I access it without any credentials? ConnectSecure always unauthenticated scans a device first. So we always look at it from an unauthenticated view and say, what is this thing showing us publicly? And then if we have credentials, we will apply those for a second scan that'll get a little bit deeper and a little bit richer. But the good news is for partners out here to run a scan on your customers' environments, we don't need any credentials. We just need to know what the range of the IPs are. As long as you give us that, we will go in and discover all the IT assets and scan them. And essentially what we do is we bring them into our all assets view. So this is what you would see after a probe scan has been initiated. A probe will go out to the network and it will find anything with an IP address, anything that has an IP address. So whether it's DHCP or you've got statics assigned out there, we're going to bring those devices in. We are going to try to identify what they are, what OS they're running, what versions, and then they will get a vulnerability scan. Vulnerability data will be presented on this screen as you're seeing. I like to call this our heat map. It gives you an idea of where the red's at. And of course, you can come in here and start sorting on these columns depending on what you want to look at. I always sort on importance of devices first, and then you can sort on vulnerability counts. So again, this is the total count of CVEs across those categories. We always have severity, critical, high, medium, low. We also classify vulnerabilities by CISA or registry based. We also scan for driver based vulnerabilities. There's something unique, I think, to ConnectSecure that not many tools are looking into. But this is how the data comes back to you. So you have pretty much a pretty clear picture of where are your most risky devices and assets on this network at, because they get a grade, right? A, B, C, D, E, F. F is bad, A is good. We want to get the vulnerabilities out and get everyone to an A, right? That's the goal. So we display it this way. And then, of course, if you wanted to get additional details about these devices, when you tap onto the host name or the IPs, This is where ConnectSecure is going to give you all of the deep, rich information that you would expect to find on your asset. And I mean everything from network, hardware, software, services, vulnerabilities, ports, compliance, um, everything that everything that endpoint is running on it. We also have a really nice security report card, and we do some security posture checks against those things. This isn't all about vulnerabilities, right? Not everything is a CVE. We also check for, is the system age appropriate, right? How many of you MSPs out there have seen computers on your customers' networks that are 3,000 years old, right? Those are risky machines. So again, we help you guys identify those by rating all your assets. And then, of course, we do some hardening checks at the OS level, looking for things like LLM-R being enabled, or old versions of SMB being turned on, old TLS versions enabled. Are you running an old PowerShell version? We love to compromise those ones. So these are just some standard I call this my gold image, right? I've worked with some MSPs out there that do a lot of hardware and new computer setups. And I told them, if I was building a new computer for my customer, I would make sure that the default hard set had all green here. These are your gold image settings to harden the operating system of a machine before you give it to your customer. If you just take care of these and then you take care of the vulnerabilities, you've literally reduced the attack surface on the endpoint by like 95%, according to all of our threat intel. So we make this easy. And again, I'm showing you guys this kind of way down in the weeds on an individual machine here. This same data is available at this entire company site. So I can see all of these in one view. We can also view this globally across all of your customers at once. So you can get a really good understanding of where's all the risk at across all your assets and start to chip away at those, right? F's and D's and E's. So that's kind of the idea there. I want to make sure I highlight our solutions page. So I'm over here in the left. I showed you all that vulnerability data. That's all fun and dandy. This is my favorite spot of ConnectSecure, and this is where we take all of that stuff we found, all those vulnerabilities and those CVEs and all that alphabet soup, I call it, and we drop it into a single pane of glass where we give you layman's terms on what are these vulnerabilities, Ryan? So like this is a great example, this very top one, this single line. This is simply a Windows Server 2012 missing a single Windows patch. And that single Windows patch is carrying almost 3,000 vulnerabilities with it. So how do you fix this? Well, you just go install that operating system update. What update? This one, KBO 62597. ConnectSecure will also let you install that. So if we come to our patch management screen and I go to OS patching, here are those assets that have patches missing. And I can literally from our operating system just say, go ahead and patch this. Online or offline assets will automatically be sorted in the UI, and then you can tell it to go ahead and run a patch. Again, some of our partners handle patch windows through their RMM tools, etc., and they don't really need to use this function, but it is there if you need it, okay? Because I know 100% of your patches are taking place in your RMM tool, right? I'm yet to see an MSP that has 100% patch rate on the policy. So this is a great supplemental tool to use to validate patches, but also then try to install the ones that maybe the RMM is missing. So again, the solutions page is where you can look at your customer and say, hey, these are the 12 items that I need to do to remove all the vulnerabilities from this customer's environment, essentially taking them from a D to an A. And again, OS updates, software patches, uninstalling versions that are no longer supported. Sometimes vulnerability management means removing software that's just out of date, out of service. And the reason we flag it is because there's no more security patches for that software. So it's very risky to keep it. So it's pretty straightforward. And this takes, again, this is what I love about it. Not only did we run the scan and say, hey, we found all the problems, but now we're telling the team how to fix them. Here you go. Here's how you fix it, Mr. Tech. Go in, run some patches, run some updates, run a new scan, and all these should drop off the screen. And as they come off, we track that for you guys. We track what's been remediated in your systems. So as you're performing patches, as you're uninstalling old software, we're going to stamp that as evidence for you guys. And again, we don't care who does this work. If your RMM does the patch, if your favorite technician does the patch, if your outsourced SOC or NOC team does the patch, we don't care. As long as it gets remediated, we will detect remediation and we will put the evidence on screen for you. So I love this because it collects all the remediation efforts from all of your tools. We know ConnectSecure is not your only tool, and it just can't be. So we collect the efforts from human effort, tool effort, and we bring it all into that UI for you guys, which is usually a really, again, a nice touch for the MSPs out there. Couple other quick areas. Everything we've talked a lot about internal vulnerability scanning with our agents, right? You install agents, they go out, they run scans on all the endpoints. We also can scan external assets, which would typically be domain names. And I always ask this question, how many of your customers have a domain name? All of them probably. A .com, a .edu, a .biz, a .org, maybe a .gov because you're working at the government level. Those are attack surfaces we can scan. And again, we target, all we need is the domain name. You tell us the name and we can go out and hit it with a scan external. And again, our results come in just like you saw the vulnerability data. Here's the host name we scanned. Here's the scoring on it. Here's the vulnerability counts by severity. You can drill down to get to the full details. Again, an external scan, it shows you what we scanned. We also check certificates. We, of course, are checking ciphers. We're checking for drown, poodle, and heartbleed attacks, which are, you just got to be checking this stuff. And then, of course, our remediation plan, again, is available. And I love this part because, again, ConnectSecure is about not only saying, hey, we found a problem, how do you fix these problems, Ryan? I get this question every day from techs. Ryan, our domain came back with Suite 32 vulnerability. How do I fix that problem? If you hit our KB here and hit check remediation script, ConnectSecure has provided the commands, the scripts, whatever you need to fix said vulnerability, we provide those. In this case, it just is a couple of registry entry sets. And this is the PowerShell to run or the terminal command, depending on what OS you're using to manage those devices. But we always provide remediation steps to the MSPs. So again, it's taking the demystify part out. How do we fix these problems? We try to lay those tracks for you guys as well on both internal and external scans. Okay. Lastly, certificate management. Another big fringe benefit of running scans. When you guys run external scans or you have agents and they run scans internally on endpoints and servers, we also detect all the SSL, TLS, any ciphers or certificates that are available out there. And we're telling you, are they self-signed? Are they expiring? Are they coming up in 30 days for expiration? We know our MSP partners are generally responsible for some of this. And if you're not, you will get a call from your customer when their SSL cert expires and their web page stops working or their email stops working or all of the things stop working. They'll most likely call you anyway. So it's great to have visibility into that. So as part of getting vulnerability management data, we're also collecting certificates for you. And again, this is one customer, but I can also go globally and look at this across all my customers. And I love to show this because, again, 613 certificates here. I would challenge you to ask all of the MSPs, if you have 20 customers, you have the same numbers here. If you have 100 customers, this is in the thousands usually. And again, these are all attack surfaces potentially or renewal opportunities for you guys to get in front of these and renew them, right? So good information that you get in fringe of the vulnerability data. We will also reach into Active Directory, Entra, and cloud solutions. So we do have a section in our tool dedicated for Active Directory. I'm just going to kind of pop in our AD area, just to kind of give you a quick glimpse into some of the things that we're checking in Active Directory hygiene. So these are what we call our problem groups. Again, not vulnerabilities, not CVEs, but what we would call Active Directory hygiene, right? Best practices for managing security in Active Directory. We're gonna look for some of those things that we know cause problems. We'll also give you a nice view of your Active Directory environments, and those agents will scan. They don't need credentials to Active Directory. I want to make that clear. If you put an agent on a machine that is connected to Active Directory, it will go and scan it using LDAP, using SMB. It will go out and determine OUs, users, computers, groups, policies. All that will come down from Active Directory once an agent gets into an AD environment. You can install agents directly on AD joined machines or directly on the domain controller itself. All of those things would be supported. Servers, workstations, or any device connected. We also support Entra ID. So again, if we have an agent installed on an Entra ID environment, we will scan all the users. It will pull in all the computers, groups, licenses, so on and so forth. Licenses, another great fringe benefit of this tool. Again, a lot of our MSP partners manage Microsoft and Entra licensing, and we always hear the question, how many licenses do we have? How many are being used? How many did we pay for last month? We pull those metrics in as part of our scanner. So we also get your Microsoft Secure Score if you're using Entra. So we will connect to the Microsoft APIs. We'll pull your secure scoring in. We'll also give you all those good comparative scores that Microsoft gives you. So this is really good data when you're talking to your customer about where they should be in terms of an industry baseline. Like, hey, other customers of your size, these are their numbers. You guys are way below that, right? You're trending behind the industry. This is a way to give them some of that data. And of course, all the Microsoft secure scoring data is presented in this chart where we break it all down for you in layman's terms, so you can fix it. So some of those other fringe benefits that'll come in. I know I'm coming up on my timer. I was going to try to rip through. I want to highlight one more piece because I think it's super and critical, which is going to be the compliance section of our tool. In addition to vulnerability scanning, right? You're going to get vulnerability scanning. But you also have the option to enable compliance scanning and assessments we have within this tool. So there's two pieces to this. One is the assessments. These are the actual assessments that you would take to go through a compliance certification or an auditor process to get these. So for example, I think CMMC seems to be the hot topic right now in our industry. If you have not heard or seen of the CMMC assessment, you can come here and hit start. You can go add, and we have the CMMC assessment all broken up here for you with all the sections, all the questions, and the ability for you to answer them, upload evidence, and actually complete a self-assessment of CMMC or HIPAA or PCI or whatever assessments make the most sense based on your customer's requirements. This is how you MSPs out there can get familiar with what is on these requirements. What do these even look like? I was intrigued by, I've heard HIPAA for the last decade of my career, but I never seen the HIPAA assessment until about 5 years ago, right? But these are great opportunities, I think, for them MSPs to learn about what are in these assessments. And then when you scan your environments, this is what you can expect to see. Again, here are the compliance frameworks we support. So you can pick the framework that you want to scan against. And then in these charts, we're going to show you exactly what is compliant and what is not compliant in your environment on your assets. So if you were trying to make a customer PCI compliant, for example, you could go to them and say, hey, we have secure configuration. We have we have an asset that's not meeting those requirements. And we can get right down to those assets for them. And we can show those guys the checks that we do on those machines. So we give you a roadmap to what is in these compliance standards. How do you get compliant? What do you need to change? So we kind of lay a roadmap out for it. And I really love this view too. And I'll leave you guys with this, but we also have at the machine level. So again, I'm in an asset. I got a Windows box here. this is my CEO of the most, our largest company. So I come in here, go right to compliance and look at an individual machine and say, hey, Mr. Customer, did you know that your CEO's machine has 324 non-compliant controls? And I know he's accessing all the most important records on this network. We should probably lock this machine down. I would target this at a server as well, file servers, domain controllers, database servers, right? Where's those critical infrastructure assets at? And look at those. They're always very interesting tells. So again, we can look at it globally, company-wide, or down at an individual asset, which again, it gives the MSPs great opportunities to have those conversations and have that data available by just running a vulnerability scan. You're going to get all this data, and all you got to do is run a vol scan, and you end up getting a bunch of other gold, I think, that you can bring forward in the lens of reducing risk for your customers. I'm going to stop my last piece here by talking about reports, because everyone asks about reports, of course. And all of the data I just talked about and all these scanning techniques are absolutely no good to nobody if you can't prove it and show it to your customers in a nice report. So here I'm going to take you through just a couple examples of all the different reports we've got. We've got tons of, I think there's over 80 reports we've built, grouped by categories like Active Directory, for example. These are all the different AD reports. Again, I won't explain what those icons are. I suspect most of our audience recognizes those files. These are the formats in which these reports can be printed in. All of the reports in our tool are also customizable. So if you print out a report and you look at it and you're like, man, I like this report, but there's like 2 things on there that I didn't like, guess what? You can take it off. Or you can white label them, of course, right? What good would an MSP tool be if you can't put your logos and brand it the way you want? All of our tools and reports are completely white labeled. Not only can you do the MSP white label, but you can do your customer white label as well. And that's my favorite way to do reports, guys. And again, I'm going to highlight this really quick. In our tool, white label reporting, we have a section here built where you can go in, drop your logos, drop all your pieces. But for me, I like to make sure when we set up customization that we do it at the customer level as well. So again, I want to talk about company level. We can also do report customization at the customer. Okay, so if I'm looking at my customer, Acme Corporation, when I put these reports together, I want their logos on it. I don't want my company logo on it. It's not my report. They're not my vulnerabilities. And they're not the MSP's vulnerabilities either, right? They're your customers. And I feel the more you make the report look like your customer's stuff, they tend to treat it a little more seriously. So I would encourage the MSPs, that are out there that are doing this, take the time, brand those reports, make them feel like they're part of your company's organization, and they go a lot further. So I didn't look at the chat. I don't know if any questions came in, but if there were any, I'm happy to get to those. Hopefully we saved a little bit of time for any QA that may have came in, but hopefully you got a good understanding of the tool itself.
Thank you very much, Ryan. That was a great demonstration. There are a couple of questions, but we'll get through the rest of the presentation just before we get to those. We're almost out of time, so I'll be efficient with the rest of this presentation. I think you guys already know anyway most of those things by now. So there are free trial and there's a 14-day free trial automatically. I think that's a good thing to use. The product is through our activation process that you're probably now familiar with for all our new products. So you go into the vendor section of Cumulus and you can activate ConnectSecure in just a matter of seconds. Certainly worth it to do so to discover the tool. As Ryan pointed out, a great way to get started is to do your own business and figure out how you stand and what you need to sort of improve. It will give you the ability to then talk easily about the product. Ryan also mentioned earlier some resources for you guys to get started. We have a few things there: student vulnerability management solution, the ConnectSecure platform guide, and then additional resources as well. The whole team at ConnectSecure has been very engaged with Sherweb, and we're all there to make sure that you can get started in the right way. I think we'll only have time to get to one question, but I wanted to ask it, Ryan. So we talked about vulnerability management all day today. What about penetration testing? Some people seem to confound the two. I don't feel like they're the same thing at all. Like, where does sort of ConnectSecure stand in regards to penetration testing?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, ConnectSecure is not a penetration test. So we're not a pen test. Now, what we are is getting you prepared for your pen test. Okay. So we can do a external scan similar to what a pen test is gonna do. They're gonna external scan you. The real difference between us and the pen test is the pen test will actually scan and then they will attempt to maliciously attack or come through open windows or run exploits where we simply say, hey, is the window open? Is the port talking? Is it there? We don't actually try to climb through it. Where a pen tester is going to actually try to come inside the port and cause some disruption. So there's a slight difference there. ConnectSecure is partnered with some penetration testing companies. Naturally, in this line of business, we work with those folks on red and white teams on that stuff. So we do have organizations that we can refer to MSPs that we don't have an official affiliation to at all. But it is a question we get often in the vulnerability management space: is are you guys a pen test? And there's probably a conflict of interest, quite honestly, to do vulnerability management and pen testing from the same provider. So
It's sort of both sides of the same fence, but it's definitely like a separate side of it.
yeah,
Thanks for the answer. I think that's something to keep in mind. There's also generally a big difference in price between vulnerability management and pen testing. Um, I think the your comment on having a healthy vulnerability management is what makes a pen testing less painful is a pretty accurate one, and one that would be relevant to all MSPs that deal with that. Okay. We're going to end it here. We're out of time. We've been out of time for a few minutes. If you have any questions about ConnectSecure, reach out to us, to your account representative, or to the whole partner team, and we'll make sure that you get all the information on how to get started. I would follow a few of Ryan's advice, which is external testing on your client as a sales opportunity, as a way to get conversation started, using the NFR on your own organization as a way to get started as well. Those for me would be very important next step for you guys. I want to thank everybody that was here today, including Ryan. It was a pleasure. Everybody, just if you have any questions, we're here for you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
thanks all. Appreciate the time.